This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Good morning, everyone. So it's every rabbi's dream to have people say, we want to hear more. So thank you very much.
We have a captive audience.
Captive audience, there you go. Actually, there was once a rabbi who gave a very long drasha. He spoke for an hour and a half. He was a rabbi in a very modern community in Los Angeles. And after the drasha, somebody came over to him, he said, and this guy was in movie productions. And he said, Rabbi, you think maybe we could do something with this drasha? I'll make a little video, you'll give a little clip. Maybe you could condense what you said today, maybe into 7 minutes, 5 minutes. We could, and the rabbi's eyes open wide. He thinks this guy's going to make him famous. He's going to make a movie out of his drasha. So he says, you think you could condense the drasha into 5 minutes? The rabbi said, yeah, I think I could do it. He said, so why didn't you? So anyway, but Lamaisa, there's a lot to talk about. Let's speak a little bit about Reb Chaim Filag'i. It's almost hard to digest that we were there yesterday. I know for a very long time I had a big cheshek to go to his kever. Reb Chaim Filag'i lived 80 years. According to some, he wrote 82 svarim, but the list says he wrote 72 svarim. So here's a little bit of the history of Reb Chaim Filag'i's development. It's not like he became Chacham Bashi overnight. In 1828, after his father passed away, he was appointed Meir Hayran, the Reish Masifta in Izmir. In 1853, he became the Rosh of Bezdin. In 1855, he becomes Chacham Bashi. He began his literary career at a young age, at the age of 16. Now, he writes something that to me was very meaningful, and that is, it's not like he sat in an air-conditioned room and he wrote and he wrote and he wrote undisturbed. He said there's not even one page of his book that he wrote uninterrupted. He was constantly overwhelmed by the tzarchei hatzibur, by tzarchei hakahol, even people pouring out their hearts to him. We mentioned yesterday that he felt to rush somebody when somebody wanted his attention would be insulting. He gave everybody their attention, and nevertheless he made time to squeeze in for his writing. But I want to read to you one line that I didn't have a chance to mention yesterday. He says, it was all be'ezer v'siyuah tzuri umagini sheloi kederach hateva. He said, what I wrote was supernatural. Afilu anoichi ba'atzmi nira be'enai shehu pela. Here, Reb Chaim Filag'i, even I couldn't believe what I did. And in other words, he saw the Rebbeinu Shalom with its mamish divinely inspired what he wrote, all these svarim. He himself did not believe. Now, we know in Klal Yisrael today, the concept of koilalim is widespread. Every city. I was just in Cleveland this past Shabbos. Cleveland, the joke is, has more koilalim than pizza stores. You know, most they have, I think, 8 or 9 koilalim over there. Who invented the idea of a koilal? Anybody know? Who invented the idea that there should be a koilalim, that people who could be gainfully employed could go and sit and learn the whole day, and other people should support them? We know there's an idea of Yisachar Zavulon, the Yechidim, but widespread koilalim is the invention of Reb Chaim Filag'i.
Wasn't it a Gemara?
Reb Chaim Filag'i was meyaseh the inyan of a koilal. Now we mentioned that he lost 54 of his svarim in the fire. He says it was marumas in the pasuk of Acharei Chen of V'games Hagoy Asher Ya'avodu Dan Anoichi. Now Reb Chaim Filag'i did not retrieve all of his ksavim. So for example, he wrote a paris on the whole Shulchan Aruch. We do not have Reb Chaim Filag'i on the whole Shulchan Aruch. He wrote over 4,000 pages of chidushim on Shas, which I believe is in the middle of being reworked, but we do not have all of these chidushim. Now, Reb Chaim Filag'i is one of 2 gedolim that in the Steichem, we know the Steichem is a voluminous work of Reb Chizkiyahu di Medini. There are only 2 gedolim that the Steichem refers to as Maran. Only 2 gedolim were zoicha to the title Maran, and they are Maran Gaoinu Zeinu, Reb Chaim Yosef David Azulai, the Chida. Now it's very interesting, we have a nice Hasidic Olam here. If you go to an auction today, which Svarim command the highest price? The Chida. And who wants to buy it? The Chida. The Hasidim love the Chida. To Ad Kedei Kach, they think he's a Chassid, right? They don't realize there's a Sephardic. What do the Hasidim have with the Chida? One thing they have with the Chida, among many, is that we know there's a famous controversy regarding the L'Shem Yichud Kutchabrichu Shchente. Are you allowed to say it? Sorry to tell you, my personal practice is I do not say L'Shem Yichud. I don't say it.
I don't say it either.
The reason I don't say it is I follow the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah does not bring it down. Now this is based on the Noid Yehuda. The Noid Yehuda said not to say L'Shem Yichud. However,
I'm a grandson of the Noid Yehuda, so I don't say anything.
good for you. Good. Okay. Now, in the Talmud of the Noid Yehuda, Shalas Tshuvas Tshuva Me'ava, he says further, who created L'Shem Yichud? Where is L'Shem Yichud from? Says the Talmud Muvak of Noid Yehuda, L'Shem Yichud is the invention of Shabtai Tzvi. And therefore we don't say it. This is not a... Shabtai Tzvi wasn't that Arizal. No.
Arizal didn't say it?
The Shem Yichud comes from the Arizal.
The Shem Yichud, the lashon of, is from the Shabtai Tzvi, and therefore you could argue with him. You could argue with everyone. You want me to talk or you want to talk over here?
No.
So therefore, Talmidei Noid Yehuda do not say the Shem Yichud, and however, the Chida writes in a rare place, because many people have all the sarma of the Chida, but they don't always come with the Chida's Perush on the Haggadah Shel Pesach, known as Simchas HaRegel. Now the Chida wrote a few Simchas HaRegels. He wrote Simchas HaRegel, a commentary on Rus. He also wrote Simchas HaRegel, Hakdama to the Haggadah. And there, the Chida takes issue with the Psak of the Noid Yehuda. Says the Chida, Chas v'Shalom, to say that L'Shem Yichud is an invention of the Shin Sadi. L'Shem Yichud has existed among the Sfardim for many, many generations that predated Shabtai Tzvi. And he wrote that the Noid Yehuda was not correct about this. And many of the practices that the Misnagdim opposed to the Hasidim, what was the Hisnagdus of the Misnagdim to the Hasidim? Mostly they felt that a lot of their practices were rooted in Sabbateanism. However, the Chida defended these practices based on the fact that they existed for many centuries in the Sephardic world predating Shabtai Tzvi. You see, Shabtai Tzvi did not infiltrate, so to that extent the Hasidim feel a certain brotherhood with the Chida and the early Sfardim. So that's an interesting thing. We mentioned yesterday that Reb Chaim Filag'i's practice was he always wore gloves. And as we said, he wasn't COVID conscious. It was because people were constantly kissing his hands, be it men, be it Yiladais, we'll call it. And therefore, as a practice of tznius, he always kept his hands covered. Now, one interesting thing that I did not see written anywhere until I saw the kever of Reb Chaim Filag'i is we know there's an idea, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mamale Shnoiseim Shel Tzadikim Miyayim Liyayim Umishana L'Shana. There's an idea that Tzadikim pass away on the same day that they were born. So for example, Moshe Rabbeinu was born on Zayin Adar, he was Niftar on Zayin Adar. So there was a question because the Rabbi Chaim Volozhiner passed away 7 days after he was born. So they were asked, so why wasn't Hashem Mamale Shnoiseim Shel Tzadikim Miyayim Liyayim? So the answer that the Nachlas David gave was Rabbi Chaim Volozhiner in fact passed away on the day he was born. Because when is a Jew born? A Jew is not born when they're physically born. A Jew is born by their bris milah. So Rabbi Chaim Volozhiner, in fact, was nifter on the day that he was born because he passed away on the day of his milah. So now the kasha, what about Moshe? So Moshe should have been nifter 7 days later. No, Moshe was noiled mal. David was noiled mal. And therefore, in fact, they passed away on the day they were born. So it's written about, now, we're going to come back in a moment to Rabbi Chaim Filag'i. Why are tzaddikim nifter on the day they were born? So there's a chiddush from Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Rabbi Akiva Eiger says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates a person yashar, like him asas adam yashar, like a clock. So a person naturally will be born with a certain time frame. Every human being really should pass away on the day they were born. However, the pasuk says, "Halaikim asas adam yashar, v'hema bikshu cheshvonos rabim." A person, he's looking for all kinds of chaps and all kinds of shtick, and therefore he sets off his internal time clock. But if somebody was a yasha, remained a yasha, they would be niftar on the day they were born. But tzaddikim who maintain their internal clocks, they in fact do pass away the day they're born. Let's come back to Reb Chaim Filag'i. Reb Chaim Filag'i was born on Yud Tes Shvat. He was nifter on Yud Zayin Shvat. But on the kever it says he was nifter on Yud Zayin Shvat. He was taken to Kavura Yud Ches. So Yud Tes, born, buried on Yud Ches, is still a kiyum of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Mamale Shnoiseim Shel Tzadikim Miyoim Liyoim Umeishana L'Shana. Okay, so a few chidushim of Reb Chaim Filag'i, stam in Torah, to get an idea of some flavor for some of his svarim. Reb Chaim Filag'i wrote a sefer, Nefesh Chaim. In the back of Nefesh Chaim, he talks about the following yesod: that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's relationship with Klal Yisrael is the relationship of a father to a son. We know it's a famous machlokes in Shas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says, I always say that it would be very convenient if we could have a relationship, we could have an arrangement with our children, that of Rabbi Yehuda's shita. You take your kids to a store, people will know your kids are running around, they're misbehaving. People say, who are these kids? You say, I'm not sure. I rented them for the day, But you can't really do that. Your kids are your kids are your kids. Rabbi Yehuda says, not us with the Ribbon Shalom. We are not always the children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When we behave, when we're oisin ritzon shel malkaim, we're the children of Hashem. Ein oisin ritzon shel malkaim, we're considered avadim. We know the shita, by the way, the Balaturim says that Rabbi Yehuda's shita is marumas in the pasuk, because the pasuk says, La asois hayashar be'enei Hashem aleikecha, banim atem l'Hashem aleikeichem. We're only banim when we're la asois hayashar be'enei Hashem aleikecha. But we know Rav Meir's shita is benkach ubenkach nikraim banim. We're always considered the children of Hashem. Now, anybody know? Do we ever paskin like Rav Meir? We know there's a klal in Shas and Erevin that we never ever paskin like Rav Meir. Why? Because chachamim have a yoidim she'ein bedar k'Rav Meir k'maisei. There was nobody as deep as Rav Meir. Why were we not kaveh the halacha like Rav Meir? Sh'layardu chachamim l'soif daitai. Nobody really understands the depth of Meir's shita. So we would paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, that we are not always considered banim lamakayim. Comes the Rashba, Shas HaTshuvos a Rashba, Kuf Tzadi Daled, Reish Mem Beis, and the Rashba says that this is the one exception in Shas that we paskin like Rabbi Meir, that we paskin, we're always considered banim lamakayim. Reb Chaim Filag'i, in the Sefer Nefesh Chaim, brings 36 proofs that we're always considered banim lamakayim. He proves from the various mitzvahs that we could not perform these mitzvahs if we would not be banim lamakayim. I'll give you a few pashut examples. Shabbos. How are you allowed to keep Shabbos? Shabbos is the staff of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's Sharvito Shel Melech. If a regular person takes the staff of the king, they should be Chayiv Misa. So why could a Yid keep Shabbos? Shabbos is a raya that we're banim lamakayim. And therefore, the ben of the makam is allowed to use shavita shel makam. Another raya is tshuva. I have a question. How could you do tshuva? Melech shemachal al kvoidoi, ein kvoidoi machal. How can you do tshuva? A king cannot forego his honor. The answer is a raya. We have a din banim lamakam, and because we're banim lamakam, we're able to do tshuva. Okay. There's a big shaila. Reb Chaim Filag'i doesn't discuss this shaila, but he answers it. Seder Noshim begins with which Masechta? Anybody know? See, they're sleeping already. That's what they want. Kedushin, very good. That's the way it should begin. You would think Noshim should begin with Kedushin. First you get married. What's the first Masechta in Shas Seder Noshim? Yevamis. Why is Yevamis the first Seder in Shas Noshim? Yevamis is a common case. Most people don't even know anybody who ever was involved in Yibam. Why would we start Yevamis? So Chaim Filag'i says that our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not Chasan and Kala, it's Yavam and Yevama. Why? Because Hashem is Zakuk to us. He's Zakuk to us. So Hashem is the Yavam of Klal Yisrael. The Geula is called Yibam. And this L'char would explain why Rabbi began Seder Nashim with Yevamos, because this is really the representation of our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, Reb Chaim Filag'i wrote a sefer, very interesting sefer, sort of like a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. It's called Moyed L'Chol Chai. Now, Moed L'Chol Chai will appear in every week's edition of Mishpacha magazine. Why? Because all the schoolos of how many coins to give to tzedakah every month, you ever see that? Give 43, give this number of coins. It all comes from Rabbi Chaim Filag'i sefer, Moed L'Chol Chai. Okay. In the Moed L'Chol Chai, Rabbi Chaim Filag'i quotes his son. I want to tell you something very interesting. Tell you something a little controversial. I want somebody to tell me, what is the main job of a father? What do you think the main job of a father is? To be your child's Rebbe, friend, role model, manhig, mashgiach, coach. So you know who says what the main job of a father is? Rashi. Rashi in Chumash says, Yosef HaTzadik says to his brothers, don't worry that you sold me to Mitzrayim. Look what the Rebbe Shalom did to me. Vayisimeni le'av lefaroi. Says Rashi, what's an av? Lechaver ulepatroin. The job of a father is to be your child's best friend. If you learn with your kid and you tell them, go to sleep, get up for shachris, put on talis, put on tefillin, but you're not your kid's best friend, you're not his father. The definition of father is to be your kid's... Really? Rashi? No, that's not what Rashi means. I'll tell you another Rashi. Rashi says Yaakov Avinu went to call his brothers. So if Rashi's bothered, Yaakov Avinu doesn't have brothers. Says Rashi, his children. Says the Chidah. From Rashi we learn you need to treat your children like your brothers. This was a practice of Reb Chaim Filag'i. Reb Chaim Filag'i throughout his Svarim always gives kavod to his children. He quotes his son Reb Avram, who is Mechadesh, listen to this, that Rosh Chodesh Teves, Chanukah, you should dafka give money Leilei Nishmas Rameir Balanes. Now this is a big pella, that's a big mystery. The Ben Ish Chai also writes, Rosh Chodesh Teves, to give money Leilei Nishmas Rameir Balanes. Nobody knows why. Why should you give it? And then he also says to light a ner Leilei Nishmas Rameir Balanes. Nobody knows what's the inyan of Rameir Balanes on the first night of on Rosh Chodesh Teves. So many suggest it's because secretly, they don't want to reveal this, but secretly, Rosh Chodesh Teves is the yard site of Rameir. And the reason they don't want to reveal this is because traditionally the yard site of Rameir is Pesach Sheni. But, so they don't want to burst anybody's bubble. So they let people think Rameir's yard site is Rosh Chodesh Pesach Sheni, but really his yard site is Rosh Chodesh Teves. One more idea from Reb Chaim Filag'i. No. Steady. One more idea from Reb Chaim Filag'i. There's a big sugya in Shas. What's the halacha if Erev Pesach comes out on Shabbos? Is it Doiche Shabbos? You know that shaila in the Gemara Pesachim, Daf Samach Vav? It's a big shaila. Who didn't know the halacha? The Bnei B'Seiro didn't know the halacha until Hillel, Allah Mibavel, and Hillel said, in fact, the Karim Pesach is Doiche Shabbos. Reb Chaim Filag'i in the Sefer Re'ei Chaim has a Maracha Noira that according to the Shita that B'Nisan Nivru Ha'olam, if I were to ask you, according to the Shita, B'Nisan Nivru Ha'olam, when was the world created? You'd say Rosh Chodesh Nisan Adam was created, and then the first day of creation was Chaf Hei Adar, right? That's usually what's understood. The same way, according to the Shita, B'Tishrei Nivra Olam, Adam was created on Rosh Hashanah, and Vayhi was Chaf Hei Elul. If B'Nisan Nivra Olam, Adam Rishon was created on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Says Reb Chaim Filag'i, Avadanat. According to Reb Yeshua, B'Nisan Nivra Olam, the world was created Ches Nisan. Adam Rishon was created Erev Pesach. It was Erev Pesach Shechaliyos B'Shabbos. Adam Rishon was makriv his carbon, which was the carbon Pesach. And the reason why carbon Pesach is Doiche Shabbos is we have a precedent from Adam Rishon was Mevi, Paroi, Makrin, Mafris on the first day of creation, Erev Pesach Shechaliyos B'Shabbos. So it comes out this year, we had Erev Pesach Shechaliyos B'Shabbos, And this year was really a unique year on the calendar because it's the same type of year with which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. This is the Chiddush of Reb Chaim Filag'i in the Sefer Re'ei Chaim. Reb Chaim Filag'i has, as we mentioned, many svarim. He has Chuvas, he has Piskei Halacha. There's a Jew in Brooklyn, a Syrian Jew, who's working on bringing out to print all the manuscripts of Reb Chaim Filag'i. But as we understand, this is a repository of information which, like the writing of many of the Gedolei Yisrael, was certainly divinely inspired. As we see, Reb Chaim Filag'i himself was nispoil at what he was at his own personal literary output. Okay, I'll give you a chance, a parak lisboinin ben parsha leparsha.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.